I want to ask you all a question tonight. If I were to tell you that 80% of the brain was set up for a central purpose, what do you guess that central purpose would be? Now, many of these answers could relate to the brain strives for survival. The brain strives to process the world around us. The brain strives to help us. Today, what I hope to tell you, I hope you find as a bit of a betrayal, in that 80% of the brain is set up to keep out new information. Now, I'm sure most of you have always thought of the brain as something that strives to help you, strives to find solutions to the problems you face every day. I'm sure none of you have looked at it as this dastardly mustache-twirling villain living in your head that strives nothing else but to keep you from getting smarter. Now, this is not necessarily the case. The brain is trying to be efficient, is trying to keep out information that it thinks is not important. But unfortunately, our brain does not know everything. Sometimes things that are important, that we do need, the brain keeps out. And tonight, my subject is how we can overcome this 80% factor, how we can overcome these challenges, and I present a solution for it once I've explored these challenges. The first thing to realize is that this 80% doesn't just apply to your intellectual studies. It doesn't apply to your school. It applies to more. It applies to every aspect of your life. Every experience that you have, you are being gypped. You're only getting 20% of it. That is a problem. That's something we need to overcome. And tonight I'm not talking about educational reform. I'm talking about personal reform. How we grow from this. How we develop ourselves. How we strive not to let the world around us shape us, but that we live an intentional life rather than an incidental one. Now, some of you might tell me immediately, well, fine. So whenever I hear something, I only get 20% of it. That means I just have to hear it 5 times and I'll get it. There's a few problems with this idea. Firstly, not all of us want to take Math 108 5 times. And secondly, not everything applies in a classroom or lab setting. We can't just press a button. We can't just sign up for last Monday again. It doesn't work that way. Some of our life experiences are one-shot opportunities. And if we don't take advantage of it then, we won't get it again. Thirdly, we always think of repetition as this great educational idea, but that might be a lie. Back in 1992, a psychologist by the name of Douglas Hensel did a study about repetition with education. He took several control groups of students, and over the course of years, he had them be introduced to ideas that were repeated. After the years passed, and after they'd gone through this repetitious cycle, he met with these students and he asked all of them about that repeated item in their classes. And he said each of those students were able to recall contexts, some memorable things that stuck out to them, some ideas they remember about the repeating thing, but none of them were able to remember the relevant idea behind what was being repeated. And he wrote his essay saying that repetition develops registration, not learning. And we need to make sure that we don't confuse those two. Repetition is not the solution to overcoming the 80% factor. In fact, the 80% factor leads into something else, what I like to call the principle of insanity. We've all heard of this idea before, the idea that insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. In this regard, with the principle of insanity, we're living our life by trying to solve present problems by looking to the past. And unfortunately, in the present, we are constantly changing, and because of the 80% factor, we're constantly lacking the knowledge that we need to solve our problems. As a result, we keep hitting problems, things that we've made mistakes again and again and again, and we look back in the past and say, why did I do that? And then the next day we do it again. This is the principle of insanity. And the 80% factor plays a role in this. And today I want to talk about the solution to this problem. That solution is finding insight. Insight overcomes insanity. Rather than looking to our past to solve current problems, insight strives to help us take a step forward and to look at who we are now to solve the problems we have now. As a result, we need to find ways in our lives that we can gain insight, ways that we can break into that 80% that we're being denied of, ways that we can grow. And today, the solution I have for that is writing. Now, I know many of you are going to hear the term writing and say, oh, yeah, I know, writing, that boring thing. But there is some data behind this. It was interesting. In 2011, the NATA Academic Statistics Organization did a survey and some research. And they created a control group wherein students were asked to keep a reflection journal of what they learned. While they were keeping that reflection journal over the course of a year, they then went back and they tested both students who didn't keep the journal and students who did keep the reflection journal. The students who had kept the reflection journal performed 76% better at solving problems in their related field than those who did not keep the journal. Now, I want you to think about this. The idea of writing and gaining insight is a way we can break into that extra 80%. If writing can truly help us break into 76%, I say that as a very adequate solution to solving the 80% problem. Now, many of you are going to say, but I hate writing, or I'm not good at writing, or I know how to do writing, but I've never found anything insightful in it. And it's true. All those things can be proven. Statistics say that 4 out of 5 students dislike writing. Statistics say that 26.6% of college students are improficient at writing. And then a survey done by the state of Michigan had a very cutting answer when they asked students what they found was the most relevant application to the writing skills they learned in college. And the answer was overwhelming: text messaging. These are the type of things we're choosing to do with our writing skills today. Writing, the issue with it, the problem we have with it is because we've always been forced in society to write for someone else. It's about writing professional essays. It's about writing professional resumes. We're seeking to give someone else insight, and rarely, if ever, do we actually write for ourselves. We're trying to learn how to write, but really we need to write how to learn. And as a solution to this idea, Dr. David L. Ward has provided a pattern that we can follow that helps us write for ourselves and find insight for ourselves. And it's a simple pattern. It's one that for those of you who hate writing or feel that you're not good at writing can implement easily in your life. It has 3 main ideas of structure. The first one is an idea. The second one is how you thought before you were impacted by that idea. And the third step is how you now think now that you've been impacted by that idea. So there's some key points here about the idea, what constitutes an idea. The first point is the idea must move you. Now, all of you have had this experience that throughout the day you might hear something from someone else, maybe a quote, maybe you see someone in your Facebook feed that makes you for a second go, huh. And when you have that huh moment, you have 2 options. You can explore it and figure out, why did I say huh? Or you can just abandon it and let it die and just move on. What we're striving for here is to capture those huh moments and understand how they can change us, how we can move past our 20% brain block and become better. The second idea is that the idea needs to address genuine problems. If we're genuinely going to grow, we need to be looking at our genuine problems and finding solutions to those things. To give an example, tonight, my speech, I've tried to structure in such a way that it follows this pattern. For instance, I started off with an idea that 80% of your brain strives to keep out new information. I hope that for many of you, that was huh moment. And that for some of you, that might address a genuine problem. For most of us, how we used to think before we heard this idea was that our brains accepted everything. And that occasionally we might have to relearn something or study something, but that generally we got the main gist. And then now how we think, I hope that you realize that through writing, we can gain insight and break through that 80% factor. I just want to share with you from my own life a personal story I've had. Ever since I was a child, an opportunity happened where I nearly drowned. And I've been traumatized ever since then from water. And it's become sort of a natural part of my life. I dash in and out of the shower every morning, trying not to get wet but still get clean. Whenever people invite me to pool parties, I politely decline without even thinking about it. But recently in the last year, I had a thought, why am I still afraid of water? And I've been able to use this pattern of insight to break down that idea, why am I afraid of it? And to list down why I used to be afraid of it. And to think now, why should I not be afraid of it? This is an idea. This pattern of insight can help us overcome the 20% block that we all face in every aspect of our lives, whether it be fears, relationships, or personality issues. And in conclusion, I just want to leave you a promise. As you implement and utilize this pattern of insight, you will stop living an incidental life. You will live an intentional life. Thank you.